A country where politicians compete, not to serve the people, but to see who can steal the most without getting caught. It's a place where being honest is, well, considered suspicious, where jobs are so scarce that the national pastime is queuing for work that doesn't even exist, and where the biggest government project is building a skyscraper so tall it could, poke God in the eye. Welcome to Aburiria, the land where reality has tea with satire and corruption wears a crown. Today, we're diving into a story so absurd, so painfully hilarious, and so frighteningly familiar that honestly, you might start checking your own country's headlines for plot spoilers. Our story unfolds in the fictional African country of Aburiria, a place so riddled with corruption that honesty has pretty much gone extinct. The head of state, known only as the ruler, runs things with an iron fist, a suspicious smile, and a pocket big enough to hold the nation's wealth. If by hold we mean steal and store in an offshore bank account. Now, the ruler's court is not your typical set of ministers. No, this is a lineup of world-class sycophants. Sikioku, the master flatterer. Tajirika, a businessman whose greed could give the 7 deadly sins a run for their money. Big Ben, Machokali, and Kanyuru, a choir of yes-men who could probably sing the ruler's praises in perfect harmony if it meant another contract. Here's the deal in Aburiria. The higher your capacity for corruption, the higher your position. If you can steal more than the next man, congratulations! You're management material. Morality? That's a dangerous disease here. People like Nyawara, the so-called Limping Witch, and Kamiti, the titular Wizard of the Crow, are treated like enemies of the state for the crime of being decent human beings. So, the ruler's latest brainwave? It's this mega project called Marching to Heaven, a skyscraper so tall it would poke God in the eye. Now, it's supposed to be a monument to Aburiria's greatness, but honestly, everyone knows it's really just a monument to one man's ego. And of course, before a single brick is even laid, contractors are already bribing their way into the project. There's just one teeny problem. Aburiria is broke. Unemployment is sky high, inflation has made the currency so worthless it's basically monopoly money, and trade is, well, mostly conducted in US dollars these days. But hey, why let a little thing like economic collapse stop you from building the tallest building on Earth, right? So, the ruler decides to charm the global bank, you know, our thinly disguised World Bank or IMF, into funding the project. The pitch? A patriotic masterpiece that will inspire the people and impress the world. The reality? It's just a massive siphoning operation that'll line the pockets of the ruler and his buddies. But here's the twist. The Cold War days are over. The West now wants to see democratic reforms before handing out loans. So, the ruler makes an announcement. Aburiria will hold free and fair elections. There are cheers all around, except for one small catch. Whichever party wins, he will be their leader. In other words, democracy Aburiria-Style. The dictator gets rebranded, but never replaced. Cue the applause from donor countries and institutions, who suddenly see this as progress. The global bank writes the check, and construction begins. What follows is a political circus featuring backstabbing, power struggles, and so much corruption that it makes you wonder if Ngugi wrote this as fiction or just copied the headlines from yesterday's paper. In the middle of all this chaos stand Nyawara and Kamiti, not superheroes, not invincible warriors, but just ordinary people, you know, determined to resist in their own way. Kamiti becomes the Wizard of the Crow, a sort of spiritual healer whose reputation spreads far and wide. Nyawara fights in the underground resistance. But in Aburiria, standing for what's right is like bringing a knife to a nuclear war. The odds are seriously stacked against you. As the Marching to Heaven project spirals into absurdity, alliances in the ruler's court shift faster than a Nairobi matatu changing lanes. Friends turn into enemies, enemies into allies, and at the center is the ruler himself, clinging to power with both hands. One clutching the Constitution, the other clutching the nation's wallet. And while all this is happening, Ngugi paints a vivid picture of a system where democracy is just a costume worn by dictatorship, where leaders can run the country like personal property, and where development means building monuments to ego instead of infrastructure for the people. The book I'm talking about is Wizard of the Crow by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. an epic satirical masterpiece that takes everything Ngugi has been writing about since his first novel, and honestly turns it up to 11. So, this isn't just a novel. It's a political thesis wrapped in humor, laced with biting satire, and honestly sprinkled with absurdity so believable it's kind of terrifying. Ngugi's Aburiria might be fictional, but, it's a mirror reflecting the post-independence reality of many African countries, Kenya included. Ngugi's core message here is actually pretty simple. Bad leadership has nothing to do with skin color and everything to do with selfishness, greed, and a lack of integrity. He's been saying this since Weep Not Child in 1964, and in Wizard of the Crow, he synthesizes decades of observation into one colossal story. We see leaders who cling to power by any means necessary, who manipulate democracy into a tool for dictatorship, and who siphon resources while the people suffer. Ngugi also shines a harsh light on the hypocrisy of Western donor institutions, who are, frankly, more interested in protecting their own geopolitical and economic interests than in genuine development. The novel aligns in many ways with Dambisa Moyo's Dead Aid, which argues that aid often enables corruption rather than solving it. Ngugi takes this even further by showing how so-called development projects are often nothing more than giant cash vacuums, feeding the ruling elite's offshore accounts. He also explores how the West's shifting alliances, from supporting brutal dictators during the Cold War to suddenly demanding democracy, are less about principle and more about convenience. As he shows, yesterday's trusted ally can become today's villain the moment they stop serving Western interests. On a deeper level, Wizard of the Crow is about the dangers of excessive capitalism and the creeping recolonization of Africa through globalization. NGOs, in Ngugi's telling, are the modern missionaries, well-meaning on the surface but often serving the same old imperial agendas. Kamiti and Nyawira are fascinating because, well, they're not perfect heroes. Ngugi deliberately gives them flaws and limitations, making it clear that change in a society like Aburiria can't come from just one person. It really has to be a collective effort. The satire here is honestly razor sharp. One minute you're laughing at the ridiculousness of a leader building a tower to heaven, and then, the next minute, you realize you've seen real-life leaders attempt equally absurd vanity projects. Ngugi's humor works because it's rooted in truth. The absurd is honestly never too far from the possible. Ngugi wa Thiong'o is, without a doubt, one of Africa's most celebrated writers and fiercest critics of post-independence politics. Born in Kenya, he began as a novelist exploring the tensions between colonialists and the colonized in Weep Not Child, then moved on to dissecting the betrayal of independence in novels like A Grain of Wheat and Petals of Blood. Over time, his work became way more politically charged, leading to his imprisonment without trial in the late 1970s for his activism and outspoken criticism of the Kenyan government. Wizard of the Crow, published in 2006, is his longest and most ambitious novel, written originally in Gikuyu and later translated into English by Ngugi himself. It's both a culmination of his literary career and, honestly, a scathing political statement on African leadership and global power structures. Wizard of the Crow is not just a story. It's kind of a manual for understanding how politics, corruption, and global economics intertwine in Africa. It's a book that will make you laugh, make you think, and make you a little angry. Because deep down, you'll know that Ngugi's satire isn't as far from reality as it really should be. If you've ever wondered how autocrats can wear the mask of democracy, how aid can feed corruption, or how a nation can be bankrupted in the name of development, this book is essential reading. And if you just want a brilliantly written, wildly imaginative story, well, it's got that too. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.